you can live a life in flow where your deepest heart's desires become reality. At Set to Love, we offer strategies and ideas on how you can stay out of crazy town. See, your human experience is meant to be lived with meaning, purpose, and creativity. You are here to contribute through your essence. We are best friends, moms, entrepreneurs, and above all, find our flow in assisting you to find yours. We come together weekday mornings to bring you ideas to fall deeper in love with your life and the journey that you are on. Take what works and ditch the rest, and always stay set to love. Thank you for being a part of this community. We're all designed to live in flow. So let's go.
Wendy Bird, life coach, nonprofit executive, and a heartfelt speaker. Just my kind of gal. I want to welcome everyone this morning to Set to Love. My buddy Eva's with us, and Wendy Bird. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. So great to be here with you too. Hey, Eva.
Oh my gosh. So we're going to start off. I'd really like to know, Wendy, what do you want our viewers to know about you?
A lot of people say, dive right in.
He's so cool.
I get the word resilient a lot and like Wonder Woman warrior, but I don't know that that's what I want people to know about me. I love life. I'm pro humanity and purpose driven, and I just truly I view life as a one-way ticket. And so I am just 100% all in all the time. And there's not really going to be a redo. I don't believe in reincarnation. Maybe I should get that out there. So, and if reincarnation is real, my luck would be the rat or the mosquito or the monkey, where I didn't have a physical body and I wouldn't be able to do fun stuff. So I'd probably be upset about that. But anyway, that's a little bit about me. I love life.
Have you been that way your whole life? Have you just been that go-getter personality? Is that just in your nature? So the women out there who are like, oh my gosh, that's so me. Those are the ones who need to dive in. Is that something that's just been part of you forever?
I'm adopted. I was adopted out of LA County Adoptions at 6 months of age. And I found my birth parents. And it was really interesting because in finding my birth mom, who was in Ventura, California still, and then my birth father was Annapolis, Maryland. And when I found them both at two separate time periods, they were my birth mom was kind of like, yeah, you were just this magical angel who's just, eyes sparkling, just alive. And then my parents that raised me, my mom was like, the minute we came and picked you out, it was like, she's different. She's gonna, she's just different. And so my parents had two natural children. So I was raised in a family of 5. I was the middle kid. And my sister was 5 years older. My brother was 5 years younger. And they're all blonde hair and green eyes. So from age 6 on, I remember sitting in the backseat of my parents' car. We're driving and the 3 of us are there. We're fighting. And I remember my dad, from the front seat, knock it off back there. And I'm looking in the rearview mirror going, I don't look like anybody in this car. Why am I in this car? And I voiced that. And my parents were just like, well, that's because you're adopted. And I remember thinking, what does that mean? What does that mean? I'm adopted. And I said, is that a good thing or a bad thing? And my dad was like, well, put it this way. We're stuck with the 2 that you're next to, but we got to pick you out. And I was like, aww. Yeah. And it just kind of gave me this moment of just thinking, oh, I'm really special, right? It's kind of weird. I do I have that memory, right? And then I also have the 16-year-old memory of, I'm going to go find my parents. They'll understand me. You don't understand me at all, right? It went to the opposite end. But it was just kind of a great upbringing. And I was the one, constantly breaking curfew, climbing over fences to go swimming at midnight. I was really that kid. So I don't know. Life begins where your comfort zone ends. So I did not spend a lot of time in my comfort zone.
You sound like you've had a really amazing life. I think I left the country 3 or 4 times in my life, and you have traveled quite a bit. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I started Pearls with Purpose in 2002. And there's a friend of mine who says, the piano of purpose is not going to fall out the window and land on your head. And in my case, it did. I was stay-at-home mom, homeschooling 5 kids under the age of 12, and I'm a certified gemologist. And so I sent out these emails because I had lost my identity. And it was, diapers, breastfeeding, toilet training, for a decade, or pregnant. And I just remember sitting like, I need to know who I am. And at the time, my husband was like, well, why don't you make some jewelry? And I was like, oh, it's a great idea. And so I sent these emails. And this is AOL days. And a lot of people right now, they can't comprehend 2 decades ago when we didn't carry the computer in our pocket. And so it's dial up and it's, and you're sending this emails, waiting 3 or 4 days to see if you get a response. And I'd made up the emails. It was like, pearls for sale, loose pearls at hotmail.com, at AOL.com, at edzamail.com. Like, I'm just making it up. And I get all these factory responses over the course of 2 weeks, but I got one live response. And it was from a woman in the Philippines. And she said, if you imported finished pieces from me rather than loose pearls, you could change women's lives in my country. And I couldn't get that sentence out of my head. I was just like, how could I change lives? Like, wait, where's the Philippines? Like, what? I just had no clue. And so I just replied back and said, well, what do you mean? And then she sent me a page of email describing poverty. And it was a description that I've never forgotten. And it was even hard to envision, because it isn't anything, even the poverty in America that we have support systems for. You have homeless shelters, you have WIC, you have food stamps, you have all these resources, and that truly doesn't exist in these other countries. And so she sent this description, and I was just moved, touched, and inspired. And I was like, okay, so how do we do this? Because I live in Utah, I've got 5 kids, I can't just fly to the Philippines. She said, teach me. And so I did, I just online, I'm just like, okay, can you find this type of a clasp, and can you do this, and da da da. And I mean, so truly the real manifestation of a woman wanting a different life isn't me, it's her. It was her saying, I want to help the women in my country, and me saying, okay, I'll help you do that. And then it just kind of snowballed. We got invited into Thailand post tsunami to do the same program, and then got invited to India in 2010, then Cambodia, and then partnered with Operation Underground Railroad and Mentors International, and started working at the aftercare program for sex trafficked survivors. And that's what took us into Peru, Dominican Republic, and then Kenya. And then we were scheduled to go to Guatemala and Nepal this year. And for the first time in like 10 years, I haven't left the state of Utah. And I'm just like, what am I doing? It's just so surreal. So,
Wendy, I want to just point out to our viewers. So our acronym for FLOW, and that's what this whole show is about, is following life's opportunities wholeheartedly. To me,
oh my
that's
gosh,
what really living in flow is about, is following life's opportunities. So I just want to point out that you were seeking, right? Like, I need to do something for me. Your husband makes a suggestion and you go, okay, you follow that suggestion, that opportunity. You send the emails. Someone else, somewhere else sees an opportunity, sends it to you. You say, okay. And it's just like, that's how flow happens in our lives. You weren't setting out to start a nonprofit to
I wasn't.
This
100%.
You had no idea, right? Where you would end up here, but you just said yes to the opportunity. You followed your heart's desire. You just said, like, I can make a difference, and this lines up with who I am and what I want to do and what I'm good at. And look at the impact that you have been able to have because you lived in this flow. It's so beautiful. So thank you so much for sharing that story.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is Wendy, how would you help someone to take real steps towards their flow? Like, there is something that you could help someone to be able to recognize, kind of like what you did, or just an opportunity.
I'm going to back that with a quick story because it's so recent, and it's so out there right now with this global pandemic. So I was in Kenya, and here's what I would tell anybody who's going, how do I get into that place of flow? I would say your habits are what ground you during a time of crisis. And if you have not established for yourself, like, what is my morning routine? I mean, just starting, am I going to honor the fact that when I told myself the night before, X is going to happen tomorrow, did X happen? And you just start with the little small steps. When we were in Kenya, it was kind of like that. Everything comes in threes, right? So the first thing that happened after we arrived was the pandemic. That was very uncertain. We knew America was starting to close. It hadn't hit Kenya yet. We were scheduled to return on the 20th. And then we got notification from Delta that flight was canceled. And so all of a sudden we were like, we can't find a flight out. And then it was like, okay, who's comfortable to stay here for maybe 3 or 4 months? And it was like, okay, that's what we'll do. We'll just stay. And then an earthquake happened. Well, the second thing that happened is my son tested positive for COVID. Wow. And I wasn't home, right? I was in Kenya, and he's 24, and it's okay. Like, everything was fine. But it's still that kind of unnerving thing of, this is happening and I'm not there. And I'm a mom. You're always a mom first. And then the third thing was an earthquake in Utah. And we were all coming from Utah. And it was amazing because that event took place. We still didn't have tickets to get out of the country of Kenya. And the other 4 team members completely fell apart. Like, they stayed in the tent. They were crying. They were sleeping. They were wallowing. They were lamenting. It was like the world has come to an end. And the next morning I was up at 6 and going for my walk and doing my journaling and doing my dailies. Like, I was doing my morning routine. And that was what grounded me. And rather than spiraling down and saying, oh my gosh, there's an earthquake, and oh my gosh, what if, I was like, you know what? This is the long haul. You have a nonprofit where you physically have to be all over the world for, and you're probably not going to be traveling. So how are you going to pivot that? And so I worked on a funnel, and I worked on a subscription program, and I worked on implementing all these changes that I could control while I'm out in the jungle in Kenya, or the plains, the safari, I don't know, whatever that country stands for. Right. And it was intermittent Wi-Fi. It was intermittent everything. And daily it was trying to find an internet connection to see if we could find a flight. And then Kenya announced, we're shutting down our borders. So if you're here, you're here. And if you're not from here, you need to get out. But there was no flights coming in because Europe had already shut down. And so it took me 5 days to get home. And I got out just like an hour before the country shut down. And it was just, I look back at that, and it was like, if I wouldn't have had the habits, that I had worked diligently on, it would have turned out a lot different. I would have been sleeping in the tent going, oh, there's nothing I can do. I'm powerless. So don't think you're powerless, and ground yourself in habits that can survive a crisis.
I love that. You know what's so amazing too is one of the terms that we talk a lot about is crazy town. Like when stuff happens, when like the surprises happen in life, it's so easy for us to just go straight to crazy town and start panicking and stressing and worrying. And it sounds like when so many things out of your control, I mean, an earthquake, the pandemic, and these are not just like little things where you could have totally went to crazy town. You didn't. You were just steadfast. Like, what can I do? What do I have control over? How do I maintain my flow is what it sounds like to me, which is another great example for our listeners. So thank you so much for sharing that.
That was
absolutely.
I love how you didn't just bury your head in a pillow or, just
it doesn't help anybody. Yeah.
Like it doesn't happen. And that's kind of like where that saying comes from, fake it till you make it. It's like when everything is crashing around you, you need to just, like you said, you grabbed onto what you really did know, what was solid in your life, all your practices. And that's great, great advice for people, because that's something we can all do right now. We can all do that. So if there's somebody out there that's having a problem, take this advice this morning and just do a few things. That's your routine. And I think the other thing is to help someone else. When you're really in a bad way, how can you help and serve another person? Because a lot of times it helps you to get out of your own way.
Mhm. Yeah, while we were there during that last week before we got out, I was very annoyed with the other team members. I'll own that. And so I was avoiding them because I didn't want to get dragged down, because you will adopt who you're hanging out with. And so I actually went out and I started interviewing the staff that was left, and I started doing gardening. I was like, how can I help you here? And I just dove into service and raised like $500 for one of the women there who was like, I'm about to not have a job, and I was just in the middle of putting a floor on my dirt floor. And when the rains come, then I won't have mud in my house. And I'm like, how much would it be for that? And so I started asking the other remaining tenants, those of us who were kind of stuck at this place. I was like, hey, do you guys want to contribute $10? This girl's trying to raise money. And then I interviewed her. And then it just like, you just involve yourself outside of yourself.
Yes.
And
Wendy, I love that. Another thing we say a lot, you were like so in sync with us, is see a need and do it. If you see a need, you can do it. Do it. Awesome. And you saw this woman who had this need, and you were like, I can help organize this and fill this need. And that's another way to live in flow, is like, see a need. And if you don't see a need, go find a need. There's so much.
You'll find it. You'll find it.
Right?
Yeah.
Wow,
okay, Wendy. So this is what we're going to do. We want to continue this conversation, and we want to dive just so much more into your life coaching work, your nonprofit, your speaking career, and the stuff you've done there too. So 2 options if you are listening live, or if you've watching this back on live stream. You can go over to patreon.com/set2love, and we're going to have this recording. We're going to end the broadcast. We're going to keep chatting. So the rest of the video is going to be there. Give me, an hour or 2 and I'll have it up. I'm also going to put together this morning and then our next conversation into our podcast, our just audio version. So you can download it on iTunes or Spotify or whatever, and you can get the full interview there. And that'll post tomorrow morning. So if you just look up Set to Love on whatever system you use to listen to podcasts, you're going to find the full interview with Wendy. I want to thank our viewers for coming and listening to Wendy today. And Wendy, I know it's brief, it's quick, but you just gave us so many amazing tidbits, and everything lines up with flow. And that is what our hope is for this show, is that we can continue to find people like you who are living in flow and have found that in their life and can share those techniques with our audience. So thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It was awesome.
And if you guys want to find Wendy in another place today, you can find her at wendy@pearlswithpurpose.org. You can also find her at coachwendybird.com. Thank you, Wendy.
Thanks, guys.
Yay. See you guys tomorrow morning, 8:30, same bat channel.